and welcome to a very special bonus episode of Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine the best movie for any given year. Today we are going to be talking about Point Break, and Ryan and Mike, my best buds, remind me, if you will, can Point Break win Movie of the Year?
I've just watched it, Greg, and yes, it can.
Okay. See, not a quality level, Ryan. I mean, according to the rules that we've established.
The rules
if it's the best movie of all
man.
time, it's the best movie of the year. That's
The rules of man say it can't win, Greg, and that's why you got to make your own rules.
I wish I were scoring this one, Mike, because that would very clearly be a point for you.
Damn it.
As you give the speech, Mike, hold on. I'm going to jerk off this can of beer and have it spray on you as you,
Thank you.
give the speech to everybody.
And I'm going to do that with a diet soda. It's not the same, but that's all I have to offer.
It's the spirit.
So we're talking about Point Break, and probably we're going to transition from talking into yelling and then like into hollering. But first of all, what is our history with Point Break? Is this, for you guys, is this a movie that was all important for you in any way?
I'll go first because I know how important it was for my illustrious panelist. I watched it a handful of times growing up. I loved it, but it did not define my era. I always was like, this
Even
is
though
super
you
cool.
saw it a handful of times, you didn't let it define. Okay.
But Ryan?
I have seen this movie a time or two. This was right in my, discovering that rated R movies were cooler than G-rated movies. And I have seen this movie a billion times.
But this is the first time you've seen it on Moody, right?
That is true, yes.
Yeah, that's different. Was it in any way different for you now watching it?
I understand that not every movie can make the Elite Eight for every season that we do. That's how math works. And I'm not going to freak out and be all upset that this movie didn't make the Elite Eight. But the fact that it delivered everything that it did to me when I was but a boy, and yet I think also have enough to win the championship, it's a shame.
Let's make no bones about it, Mike. This is a perfect film, correct?
Yeah, but it's the kind of perfect film that is perfect for all of its mess. Does that make sense? This is the perfect R-rated movie for a 10-year-old boy. And not just because you're going to see boobs and there's action and there's Swayze and Keanu, but because it starts making you think about things. They both have life philosophies that they scream at each other, and that as a kid you're like, wait, people think about the world differently?
I don't like your tone already. I think that
I'm agreeing with Greg.
You said it was the perfect movie, but you were like, yeah. Like there was a weird sound to your voice.
This is there's so much good and spectacle. This is all the fun a movie can promise.
And more, and all. Anything that a movie should ever do is in this movie.
And he's our film guy, Greg. See, that's what's crazy.
Well, I think we have a lot to say about this movie, and there's no reason not to get right into it after this break. Movies of the early 90s could be either about extreme sports or bank robbery. Point Break invites us to imagine a world where those streams cross and combine to give us one perfect film. Keanu Reeves is Johnny Utah, fresh-faced FBI agent and one-time college football star with the trick knee to prove it. Patrick Swayze is Bhodi, the adrenaline junkie-slash-guru-slash-criminal who wants to teach Johnny about the spiritual side of surfing. Also along for the journey is Gary Busey, who seemingly wandered onto the set and was filmed trying to talk his way into two different meatball subs. Gentlemen, I ask you this. A character named Johnny Utah, a pit bull thrown like a weapon in the midst of a 10-minute chase. Gary Busey's character nearly missing a bank robbery because he was laughing too hard at the funnies. This is a straight-up comedy, right? Is there any other way to interpret this movie than as satire?
Here's the moment that I think you know, okay? It's going along, and Greg, while watching this, I thought a lot about your 1980-11.
Uh-huh, yes.
And I think that this movie is the turning point. I do think that this kicks the 80s into the 90s because it is, like, just hearing you talk, Greg, was absolutely insane. Like, that can't be a fucking movie. But the way that it sort of, this was a drawn-out process to who actually wrote it, who actually directed it, but when it finally landed in these people's laps, they were like, what if this wasn't just another 80s movie? And I think the moment you realize it is Gary Busey and Keanu Reeves are getting yelled at by Dr. Cox, and the camera pans over from Gary Busey who's just there slumping, and who, but believe it or not, is not Nick Nolte in this movie.
No,
are you sure?
I want to point that out. And it pans over, and Keanu Reeves is also getting yelled at, wearing a purple tank top and holding his giant surfboard in the fucking commissioner's office.
And I like that the movie
from that point,
even
you're
was
like, Point Break, baby.
the movie had to be like, well, we have to address it. And Busey's like, why'd you bring it? And he's like, I couldn't lock my door. And he's like, well, okay, sure, that makes sense. Yeah, this makes me so sad watching Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30 because this shows that for a while, Catherine Bigelow had a sense of humor. And the point of her movie was the shit guys like is dumb and isn't that hilarious and fun. And at a certain point, she went, no, it's hardcore.
This movie has, I don't want to exaggerate. I'm going to say it has 5 different laugh out loud funny moments where a character will completely earnestly deliver a line and it causes you to just scream laughing because it's like the most absurd thing you've ever heard in your life. And I don't think when I was a kid, I had no idea that was going on. I think I thought all these lines were just like nails cool.
Yeah.
Cox is yelling to Johnny about something, and he's like, is there anything else? He goes, caught my first tube this morning, sir.
Yes.
And like Keanu at this, but like in the last like 5-10 years, everybody is like, he's the best. He's always been the best. But there's
since we put him in the Hall of Fame.
Since it was us. There was a time where people made fun, but it's clear watching this, he is turning his Keanu tone of voice up and down. Sometimes he's very Bill, sometimes he's not. And it feels like he could deliver certain lines straight. And the director's just like, hey, can you just Keanu that up a little more? And he's like, oh, okay.
But then I guess the big question is, because I had that same thing, Greg, of like, I thought it was the height of cool, and now I think it's a hilarious romp. But when you're laughing at it, there's a lot of 80s movies that we could laugh at that are deadly serious. Do you feel like it is all intentional, mostly intentional, somewhat intentional? Decline to answer.
I think it's a lot like what Mike said, which is that it is such a effective like lampooning of action lines that when I was a kid, I didn't see the joke in them, and so they were written perfectly on that level. But now watching it, it was meant to be laugh out loud funny. I'm sure that watching the end of this movie, like it gets dramatic near the end, obviously, but right before the third act starts, it is absolutely hilarious. That whole weird Gary Busey scene where he keeps yelling out, I want 2 subs, and they almost miss the bank robbery.
I need 2. Because he could eat the ass out of a rhino.
I could eat the ass end out of a rhino. I should have had you give me 3 of these things.
There's also 3 parts where Gary Busey screams about what he was doing when you were so young.
Yeah.
Like... You get one of those characters.
Well, he has to let each individual he comes across what they were doing when he was still in the force.
But we're not making fun. I think that there's a confusion that like you're either Lethal Weapon or you're Loaded Weapon 1.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're either Die Hard or you're Naked Gun, and that's not. This movie is very comfortable in the middle and secure and confident about it.
That's the thing. It's secure and confident because a lot of movies are like, we have to let you know we're in on the joke. We just have to. We have to. Point Break never breaks. It never is like, no, this is a joke.
Point.
And because of that, it's legit so much funnier because it never really lets you know that they get the joke. But there's no way Catherine Bigelow isn't laughing at all of these dudes. There's just no way.
That's why in the chase, the hardest person throughout this whole movie, and every dude thinks they're hard, but it's the girl who is in the shower, gets freaked out because there's guns everywhere, so she decides to beat the shit out of literally anybody who comes near her, and she
nakedly.
does. Yes.
I will naked fight
she destroys.
around here. And okay, while we're sort of talking about the genre part of it, if it's a comedy, does that, like an action comedy, does that help us excuse what seem to be like some really weird glaring plot holes?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, because
next question.
In the beginning of that scene, before Naked Lady starts fighting, they go from like, let's watch this house to like, I guess we'll raid it, but they don't know that there's a bunch of like armed munitions in there. They're just, it's time, we got bored, it's time to fucking kick in with 4 of us.
Johnny goddamn Utah is like an hour late to his own raid. They make a point of it, but does that mean that they were standing outside of that house for 1 hour waiting for this plainclothes cop?
All 3 of the other dudes who were part of that raid.
Do not, you don't want to analyze this plot with monocles on. Let's say that.
Also, they are sure that the surfer gang he's hanging out with is the ex-president's gang. They are 100% sure. And then he knows for a fact that Bhodi sees him when they try to make the bust. And he like then still allows himself to be taken all the way up onto that airplane with Bhodi. Like,
well, that's just living ultimate.
Yeah, but not radical. Guys who only live radical have issues with life. You got to live ultimate.
The question I had for you guys, and Greg, what was your history with it?
Oh, when I was a kid, this is like one of the rated R movies I was inexplicably allowed to see. And so I saw it a million times because if I could see a rated R movie and it actually had any sort of nudity in it, I would want to watch it. And so I've just seen it probably as much as I've seen any other movie.
Okay, but it's been a while, right?
Oh, God, yeah. Like I haven't seen it since I was like 13 years old.
While I was watching it, I was thinking he meets Bhodi, and by he, I mean Johnny Utah, always, capital H. He meets Bhodi and he's hanging out with his friends, and then he starts to think, I'm going to call them the Kiedis gang, is the bank robbers.
Right.
Are we as an audience member supposed to actually think it's the Anthony Kiedis gang and not Bhodi for 1 second of this entire movie?
No, I'd say they're using dramatic irony, the filmmakers, which is how you know it's actually a smart movie. One is he's tricking himself. He doesn't want to think it's Bhodi and the bros because how Busey describes the ex-presidents, he talks about how methodical they are, how good they, and like, so in 3 seconds of meeting the Kiedis gang, you know it's not those meth heads.
He also wipes them out. Like, him and Bhodi kick the shit out of all of them.
Yeah.
Including War Angel.
When we come back, we're going to get to another question. Well, that is very, very funny. Or very sad, and perhaps now you have something to think about. Or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody. Keep watching them movies. One of the reasons Point Break was expected to fail was because it miscast both of its leads. How well do our leads figure out their parts and each other and each other's parts? Wink.
I can't think of somebody better cast than Patrick Swayze in this. What do they mean miscast? He does amazingly as Bhodi, the philosophical surfer bank robber.
I think the idea was that he was miscast. Maybe before people saw it.
Yeah, you basically switched the roles. That you gave the philosophical surfer role to not Keanu Reeves. Seems crazy. But Patrick Swayze did have Roadhouse before this, which is the philosophical, peaceful bar bouncer. So I think that's okay.
And Dirty Dancing, the philosophical dirty dancer.
Dirty Dancer, yeah. He had that job. I think that Keanu Reeves struggles a little bit.
Yeah, especially early in the movie. He opens up when Swayze shows up, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, we all do. And of
we
course
all
does,
did,
but,
yeah, dude. Greg.
But I think that he does struggle a little bit. And I know, like Mike said earlier, it's sacrilege to say anything bad about Keanu Reeves, but...
Or think it, really.
Yeah, don't even think it. But he is... They're asking him to do a lot more than he's capable of. When he's screaming at Pappas, like, you're a shitty cop. Are you angry? Doesn't that feel good? Doesn't it feel good to be angry?
I loved that scene. You see,
maybe Patrick Swayze could have done better there. But overall, it doesn't matter. We just needed the two of them to get together.
But it's because I think I buy Keanu falling under Patrick Swayze's spell. If the roles were reversed, I'd be like, no.
Oh, gosh.
Because age-wise, there is like wisdom in Swayze's eyes that Keanu, he feels like the young buck here.
You know what? If we're going to keep shit-talking Keanu, and remember, Mike started it, and I don't want to do it, but Mike is making me. Lori Petty or Tyler and also Bhodi, they keep saying, I see it in your eyes, man. You're a bulldog. You're a pit bull. You're crazy. You have this need for the edge. And it's sort of just them saying it. From where I'm looking, he's kind of a straight-laced nerd.
Honestly, the most extreme thing he does is he never stops tracking down Bhodi, but that's done off camera.
Right.
So, like, we're not aware of that as
he
the
told
audience.
us about it.
Well, I think that once he meets Bhodi, he and Bhodi start to come together. But before
they're road
that,
dogs.
I don't really understand where they're getting that from. In fact, he's so straight-laced that when Tyler says, "Are you lying? Did your parents really die in a car crash?" Instead of just saying, yes, they did, he says, they live in a house in Nebraska, and here are their names.
Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio.
Man, there's nothing more embarrassing
than being front. It's so weird to be undercover using your full name, and you were a minor celebrity. The Surfer Bros knew who he was.
Yeah.
And also, these bank robbing surfers know a lot about fucking college ball from a few years ago.
Seriously.
Well,
I could not name a
supposed-
single high school player right now, and they all knew.
But he was supposed to play somewhere in L.A., and I think when you get into the downtown L.A. area, people are more aware of like what's going on with the local college football,
like Matt Leinart.
Yeah, dude, Matt Leinart, Carson Palmer, Reggie Bush, the Bush Push, all of that.
Did they all have their knees go 90% backwards?
Dude, I love how much that came up. Honestly,
that's
like
a pivotal plot point.
Yeah, one of his major characteristics is that he's got a bad knee, and it comes up like 8 different times where he's like, "Wait, Tyler, come back! Ow, my knee again! Oh, babe, I was gonna chase you down, but then my knee hurt too bad, and I simply couldn't. I'm sorry."
My parents' address in Columbus, Ohio, is as follows.
I like how he's like, "Babe, I have to tell you something, but I feel like it's gonna maybe complicate our relationship." Yeah, dude. When you tell her you're an FBI agent and that you got involved with her to maybe like arrest this gang, that's gonna make your relationship super complicated.
How they meet is he decides she should teach him. There are surf schools.
I know.
You should probably learn far away from where you're going to be investigating people, bro.
Well, the FBI in this comes off as just the absolute worst, don't
Yes.
they? I mean, like, nobody's in control. Nobody's thinking. They take what is essentially a peaceful gang, and they start firing at it the first time they ever lay eyes on it.
That raid, I was watching this movie with my wife, and that raid, she was like, "I'm out. This FBI is so stupid. These decisions are so dumb that I can no longer watch it." Now, let's keep in mind that my wife, have we talked about the Fast and the Furious yet?
No.
That's crazy. My wife does not appreciate those movies either. So
what?
Who gives a shit about her? I will probably divorce her. But there was no enjoying the forest through the stupid trees for Point Break for her. She was just like, this FBI is so poorly run, I can no longer bear witness.
It's got that early 90s hard-on crime thing where, like, these guys are committing property theft. They're not even stealing the money out of the vault. They just take the money out of the drawers. And the first time Keanu Reeves sees these people, who might be his friends, he just opens up into the back of the car.
Yeah.
And then Gary Busey does, too. And later he's like, "Hey, when you shoot, you don't miss." You missed, Gary. You missed like 8 times.
Well, no, he wasn't giving advice. He was saying he's seen Keanu shoot.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's true.
And Johnny Utah is such a crack shot that he must be.
He knows that there must be a reason he
purpose.
missed. He also said, "If you shoot, you get me 2 meatball sandwiches."
Okay. Also, another great moment that has to be comedy in this is when he can't shoot Bhodi as Bhodi runs away, and so he yells and just fires his gun 8 times into the air.
After Bhodi hangs off the fence for 30 minutes, just staring at him to see if he'll get back up. Yes, there's no way that's not funny.
Screaming about how messed up his trick knee is.
My knee!
But when they're together, they have a real palpable synergy on screen, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there were chemistry tests or if that was a thing back in the 90s, but the two of them together, there's so many star pairings. And let's be honest, this was not like Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks at the time. It was more B-level stars, Keanu and Patrick, but they were, double headliners, and you do need them to work, or you don't need them to work, and this does become just an average movie, just another early 90s action movie. The way that the two of them relate with each other, just on a bro level, and maybe even more than that, is really what pushes this movie over the edge into the ultimate extreme.
Nothing in the movie shows their bond. It's definitely the two of them and their acting that elevates. And I see a kindred spirit. It's just not there in the movie on its own.
There's a throwaway scene where they are walking back to their cars after the fight, after they kick the shit out of War Angel and the crew, and it really the camera's far away, and you wouldn't really remember it if you were a kid watching this, but they're just talking about what the ultimate high is, and Keanu or Johnny is like, "Oh, I feel like you're gonna start chanting," and Patrick Swayze's like, "I might do that." These throwaway moments. They can go away if you don't have star chemistry, if you're not great together. But how impactful just that moment was, you believe every other thing that they do together through the rest of the movie with little moments like that.
For me, so much of that is just Swayze. The whole environment of this movie changes the second he arrives on the screen. He's so comfortable. He moves with I don't think when I was a kid I appreciated how great his movement is. Even when it's really subtle, he's just so graceful. But then when they're fighting, he literally looks like he's dancing during their fight. There's one part where he like springs forward onto Keanu, and it's like seriously like they're like a leap in a dance or something.
Dude, growing up with these guys like Patrick Swayze, it makes sense why they shifted the cast if they did, because Keanu Reeves is straight. Like, he's just a straight arrow. And Patrick Swayze, whether he's a surfer or philosopher or not on any of his roles, he does just sort of bop and beat to invisible headphones like in every movie. And he's just sort of like that, you know? He just sort of moves and speaks and talks in this like weird beat. It's perfect casting.
That way makes me now wish they had made Fight Club in 1992 with Keanu in the Edward Norton role and Swayze as Tyler Durden.
Damn. Is there an inconsistency in the character of Bhodi towards the end of the movie? I really like the character of Bhodi all the way through. And then the very last thing of like this girl that is part of my crew that I used to be in a relationship with, I'll have my other friend just gut her.
The best explanation I have for that is that when he saw that Johnny was an FBI agent, he lost his damn mind. And like he's brokenhearted. And he had a death wish, sort of, you know, throughout the first 2/3 of the movie. But when he sees that his boy Johnny is like has betrayed him, he has a literal death wish, and that's where the shift changes. And like you could see it in his eyes.
I'd buy that, especially like because he's been all peace and love, but I think Bodhi's also somebody who he's never going to say I control everything. He's always going to be like, Misa casa su casa. But I think he's somebody who thinks he has everybody's number. He is always in control. So the minute a guy who he thought was his new protege ended up being that, I could see him snapping for sure.
You know what?
And I felt...
Oh, go, Ryan.
I felt so bad for him at the very end of the movie because I agree with Mike. He's a borderline cult leader, right? He relies on everyone looking up to him. He thought he had this new recruit. And now at the end of the movie, everyone in his crew is dead except for Rosie. Yeah. And so now he's just like,
Rosie
me
sucks.
and fucking Rosie. And who is Turd Ferguson from Oz? That's the guy in Oz who gets taken over by J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh, yeah.
You guys watch Oz?
The guy that gets, dominates. I have not seen it in probably 2 decades. We are going to take a short break here. When we come back, start talking about something we all are very familiar and comfortable with, masculinity.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com. And it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review, bye!
We've been dancing around it by talking about the 2 male leads. What does Point Break have to say about masculinity? And maybe homoeroticism, ?
Okay, so this movie was written by a guy who just cranked out 80s action movies and was supposed to be directed by Ridley Scott. And that would have been good because I do like Ridley Scott's like treatises on masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
But for Catherine Bam Bam Bigelow to swing in here and to make this movie that, you know, shines a light, holds a mirror, all up to masculinity with all also like we discussed, keeping it on this side of Naked Gun parody, I think is what makes it the perfect movie. Like without her showing, you know, this is what you guys look like. That's what makes it the greatest movie of all time.
And I think Catherine Bigelow is such a smart director because there is nudity in this movie, and there's times where the camera lingers on Lori Petty, but it's not lascivious when the naked girl is beating anybody up. Like
I would say there's a shockingly little amount of nudity in this movie.
Yeah. I think if a dude did it, it'd be way more gratuitous. And I think that this is where you get rid of that male gaze in this movie, and it's just fun the whole time instead of being like, I know we want to talk about these characters to see a cool backflip off an exploding shark, but I guess we're gonna do a slow creep up somebody's butt.
Oh God, when I watched this movie, I had not seen it since all of the discussion about Bhodi and Johnny being attracted to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a common thing to say about movies with two male roles, you know?
Right.
And so I was like, I wasn't rolling my eyes, but I was on the lookout for it. And it's there. It is there, full of like surfboard crotches and gun crotches and all that. But the premiere scene, as far as what masculinity means in this movie, is there's one guy who just loves showing his butt, and towards the end, he's surfing, and he pulls down his pants and shows his butt to the rest of his crew while he's surfing. And then it's just with a trick of editing, it then cuts to Patrick Swayze looking directly at that butt and going, woo!
That is also when Johnny Utah puts it together. He's like, I know that butt.
Okay. Yeah, no, exactly, because they stared at his butt on the security camera for so long.
So much of the movie is people having fun and then going, woo! All right, this is the greatest.
Like, have you guys ever been to a party?
No,
That's
heard
how
of
it
them.
is. That's just what it is.
Just
is that
Yay!
you log on and you play that Quip game?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quippy.
I've been to a party, man. Yeah, that stuff's fun.
The female lead here is Lori Petty, and she is a Bhodi ex or current, but like I think that everybody on the beach keeps loose relationships. But Johnny Utah seems to me to mostly be interested in her as a FBI, like as help, until he learns that she and Bhodi used to go out. And then that's when he's like, well, hello.
And I mean, there is something going on there because, you know, her name is Tyler. She becomes the person that gets like kidnapped. Mm-hmm. And so it's like there is a weird intertwining of the fact that each had a relationship with her and their relationship with each other in a way that's not always comfortable, but is clearly supposed to link them even more deeply. Is there not much action in this movie for an action movie, or rather, is there not a lot of conventional action? Because there's like a lot of action sports, right?
They instead of like car chases, there's sweet surf moves. There's like a couple little fist fights, but until the back third, which at that point it does not stop.
Again, feeling kind of like parody. How many people get shot in the end of this movie kind of feels like absurd onto a joke.
And sometimes getting shot is real painful and death, and sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah, radical.
But until then, it's just like, at some point, action will happen, yes?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say it's the first hour before, like, it's basically before the heist, where it's sort of just a faux love story between Johnny and Tyler.
And I think that's why the intro had to happen with Johnny shooting in the rain and giving it the best thumbs up, and Bhodi surfing, because it was just like, well, hook him, and then you're not going to see this kind of stuff for an hour straight.
And just both of them with soaking wet hair.
Yeah.
Just, this is how we do our dangerous things.
I know.
Whatever happened to Lori Petty?
She's in Station 11.
Oh, is she?
Oh, yeah, you're right. She is.
Because she
I was
owned
just
the early
watching that
90s.
today trying to figure out who it was, and it was the woman I've been watching in a movie for the past 2 days.
There it is, Greg. She was also on Orange is the New Black for a little bit.
Yeah.
She went away for a while, and I don't know if there was drug issues or whatever. I don't know if she was banished for like not hooking up with Harvey Weinstein. I don't know why she went away, but
that's always the thing that hangs over whenever we're missing a celebrity from a while ago, right?
This movie, like, Tyler on paper is really a really half-assed character who just goes from being one of the boys in a poorly written way to kidnapped damsel in a poorly written way. And this movie is perfect for showing you like what Lori Petty could eject into a role, because she is a little weird. She's got like unconventional looks, unconventional voice, but she's got this energy that like if you sort of have an undercooked role for a girl, like she was a perfect casting back then.
Yeah, and I think she fits into the perfect space in the movie and helps to like sort of connect the two male characters, but still like feel distinct in her own way. It's certainly not a movie about her, and it's a shame really that she becomes like out of kind of nowhere becomes the stakes.
Yeah.
But we do this all the time with boy directors, but I'm just now putting together how like so in so many of her scenes she is Catherine Bigelow, like just rolling her eyes at the pissing contest that she's constantly seeing,
But in love
she's
with
the one.
That's what's complicated and cool is she thinks everything they're doing is stupid, but she's not leaving.
But yeah, but I want to watch it, I want to film it.
Yeah, because the game that they're all playing is addictive. That adrenaline, like Bhodi at one point is like, some people stick a needle in their arm, some people snort something up their nose. Those are both terrible behaviors. You shouldn't be saying like jumping out of a plane is okay because it's analogous to doing those things.
Right.
Oh my
God!
Clearly
they're junkies.
But they go night surfing, which there's no reason except to like get injured. Like you could just wait for morning. But the most masculine part of this entire movie is Rosie stays on the beach and has to light a fire. He lights a fire by sticking his machete into the lighter fluid instead of opening the cap that is 3 inches above it, then shooting it everywhere, lighting the fire, and then just holding his leg above the fire.
I thought Rosie was going to die throughout that scene. So many times it looked like he was just in the fire.
Just burst into flames.
There's one point where Patrick Swayze's like, I hate violence, man. I hate that you have to make me do it. Rosie loves that shit. Like, he'll do it all day.
I could never hurt anybody. That's why I got to bring Rosie in and just bring him into the room and then leave. Because I could never do that. That's awful. When we come back, we are going to give Point Break the awards it so sorely deserves. Awards. Unfortunately, the Academy did not recognize the brilliance of Point Break, a movie that I believe in like 30 years will be considered one of the finest of 1991.
Hey, Greg, it was nominated for 3 MTV Awards.
Nice.
It won Most Desirable Male, Keanu Reeves. It was nominated for Most Desirable Male, Patrick Swayze. And, this is my favorite, it was nominated for Best Action Sequence for the second jump from the plane.
Yeah,
that's how many jumps from the planes are, that they have to make sure you know which jump from the plane they're talking about.
That's the Keanu, like, without the parachute, knifing through the air. You pull it. We'll both pull it. You pull mine and I'll pull yours. So it won some of those awards, but you know what? Let's face it. It needs more awards. And let's get to the ones that are special just for this movie. What wins the award for element Fast and Furious didn't lift but should have, Mike?
I think, obviously, Fast and Furious would not exist without this. Do you know what it feels like they started to and didn't? Is Ted Levine is in Fast and Furious in the first one. He is Paul Walker's, like, FBI handler.
Uh-huh.
But I think they clearly needed a Gary Busey type that Paul Walker could bounce back. So often he's just alone, staring off, thinking things, and he needed a Gary Busey there. Maybe Jake Busey, because Gary would be a little old in the early 2000s. But somebody who with just giant teeth to scream and watch the funnies.
Point of order. Is there such a thing as a Gary Busey type? Like, I feel like Busey is serving something that you only get as part of the Busey experience.
Yeah, it's true.
So not to go Chris Farley, but one of my most burned-in memories from this movie is Gary Busey bitching about how he has to like go find bricks at the bottom of the pool.
Yeah.
And it's the way that he dives into the pool. Just what a pop-off rebel asshole, because he just goes, yeah, and dives in.
Ryan, what do you think is the thing that Fast and Furious should have lifted?
It's the homosexuality, Greg, the clear homosexuality. Because,
yeah, right, not just the family, but the actual, like, longing.
Yeah, I know that Brian and Dom loved each other, but not as much as these two did. And I know that Brian and Dom famously went and had their own families. They talk about it a lot. But if there was a little bump in the road for those families, if there was like a will we, won't we, I think that could have made Fast and the Furious better. You're
going to make your story more interesting if you queer the love between some of the characters. I think that's just a simple fact.
Mike, you've been through the series more recently than we have. Is there any queerness in the first like 4 or so?
I think there's a surprising amount in the first one. Surprising if you haven't watched it in a while. It is there. Where the same thing where like it's different because Dom does not get with Mia because that's his sister, but it is clear that Brian is after Mia because he can't be after Dom. And the way they stare at each other while they're racing is just fucking.
And how dangerous was it that they were kissing while they were racing in different cars?
I mean, through cars. That's crazy. I'm told that's pretty dangerous.
Ryan, what is the best bit of surfer philosophy?
Greg, if you want the ultimate, you have to pay the ultimate price. There is no shame in dying doing what you love, which means, ergo, ipso facto, you have to die surfing or jumping out of a plane. Jumping out of a perfectly good airplane.
Mike, what do you say?
I think it's that surfing is about losing yourself. When he describes surfing and how the other gang doesn't really get it, and he's just like, there's that moment when you just catch the wave and you can't think about anything else in life and you're not a person, you're just there. That's fuck yeah, man.
By the way, when anybody says this to you, folks, get the fuck out of there. When somebody comes up to you and says, color me mine, where I'm painting my own pottery, it's just about losing myself. You got to clear your mind and you got to be, just leave. Just get away from that person.
No, I like that one. That's better. The ultimate price versus the ultimate rush is stupid as hell.
I like the kid who just said surfing is the source. I thought that was really cool.
And you got to figure that out.
I wish I would be cool. I wish I were cool like that. Who does the best pound for pound performance, Mike?
I think it has to be Swayze.
Swayze, right, Ryan? Do you agree?
I have the Swayze as well.
Swayze for days, see? He's the one who gets it done. I was really, I mean, we're being jokey about it, but I was really impressed with this performance. He feels so comfortable and at home, and the movie is really just about to fall to pieces when he comes in, and the effect his personality has on the group of characters around him is the same effect he has on the movie. He pulls it together, and he gives us someone to follow, gives us someone to believe in.
Yeah, we're like, we'll join your gang, Patrick.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Always watch them when they're not talking. That's how you can tell the great performance. And when he's watching Johnny watch Tyler on that video, you know, Tyler's been kidnapped and he's watching Johnny watch it. It's like legitimately good.
Yeah, this dude could act a little bit. Let's see what else. Director's signature moment. A lot of tape, a lot of film on Bigelow. What is the signature moment from this movie, Ryan?
I do think it's the second dive, and here's why. Credit to MTV Movie Awards for
shout out to the MTV
at least
movie.
nominating this, if not giving it the win. But there's a couple things going on here. One, this movie is still known to this day as the best shot skydiving movie of all time.
Yeah, dude.
And that might sound like a specific award, so it doesn't matter, but it's very difficult to do. You know, it's very like Black Widow. At the end of Black Widow, there was a lot of skydiving as a building fell over, but that's all green screen and computers.
Man, having seen a lot of CGI movies recently, it's so nice just to see like the outside.
Yeah.
They shot this shit, and it's also like the Zack before CGI or during CGI. We also had the Zack Snyderiness and the Michael Bayness of just the constant editing, the constant camera angles, the constant close-ups, and you at no point through this ever lose where you are in the sky.
No.
You know exactly where each of these jumpers are as you are diving down, and so I'll include the first jump as well. Like, just all the skydiving is amazing, but the reason why she can do that, the reason why I think this is the second one where Keanu jumps without a parachute is so powerful, albeit stupid, not a good strategy if you want to live a good long life, is that she doesn't need the music, the loud music and the quick cuts, because she trusts the rest of her movie. She trusts that the rest of her movie built the tension up to that point so she can just show the scene. So many times people are like, I don't think I did a good job when they get to that part in the movie, and so they have to like furiously show us what they like, where they want our tension level to be.
Yeah.
And Bam Bam sits back and says, I already did all the work. Now just watch these two angels fly in the air.
And it's a lot of shots, but it's very beautiful. I like a part, one of the guys, they all have to yell something out, and one of them yells sex with the gods, but it sounds so much like he's yelling out sex with a girl, which would just be the cutest thing to yell out jumping out of him.
He's shouting out his bucket list. I will say, as good as the
holding hands during a movie,
as good as the skydiving looked and sounded, the surfing ADR was insanely bad.
Dude.
That part was bad, Bam Bam. You got to get your shit together on that one.
Mike, what do you think is director
I want to say the end after Swayze dies, or we presumably dies, and Utah just walks off, and he's just like, I'm done walking out. I think so many of her movies, if not end with it, have that scene of one of her leads, always a dude, walking off, because it's clear she's not just obsessed with like masculinity and what it means, but like how obsession makes somebody isolated and alone.
Yeah.
And I think she often has these shots. So him just being like, I'm done. I'm not dealing with any of the paperwork. I'm chucking my thing. Like I'm a lost soul now. She deals with that kind of stuff a lot.
By the way, Keanu, quitting the FBI is not like declaring bankruptcy where you can just yell it into the air. Like, you can't just throw the badge in there and it goes away.
They'll never find me now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the very end, it was wet. Like, it was raining, so it was hard to tell. Did Keanu Reeves had long Swayze hair and Swayze have short Keanu Reeves hair at the end?
I know Keanu had long Swayze hair.
I think they switched hairdos.
That's so fun.
That's very adorable. God, into the water. Did things make us cringe? What made us cringe, Mike?
Though, I mean, the one is just like how he said it. I was like, oh, it was Dr. Cox from Scrubs saying, I know you. You're young, dumb, and full of cum, and not like it just. I was like, ew, what the fuck? You're just. This is where's HR? You're giving this guy orientation right now.
What do you say, Ryan?
There's a scene when Pappas and Utah are getting to know each other that works really well. They hop up on desks and pretend to surf. Johnny Utah sips from a beer as Pappas chugs Jack Daniels in the same fashion. Just put the bottle in the mouth and chug. But there's this one just kind of dumb part that dudes have to get through when they're becoming partners of just like, it's called sex wax. Oh, what? I better watch out. Yeah, you better watch out. Oh, because you might sex wax me? Yeah, I might. Just okay. So now we did that conversation. Can we move on with our relationship, please?
I might sex wax you. I don't know. Could. Potentially. Well, that is all the awards. Congratulations, Point Break. You were the winner of each and every one of those awards. Now, we know canonically this movie cannot win Movie of the Year. We talked about it briefly up at top. If it were in the bracket, it would have a puncher's chance, wouldn't it?
I honestly, a puncher's chance. Does that mean that we talk about how fun it would be if they were to win, but then
meaning that like like 1 in 100 times they could like it could just everything lines up perfectly so that it somehow waltzes all the way to the finals.
1 in 100, I would say yes.
Right? It just draws the matchups. But honestly, at some point, it's still going to have to beat Silence of the Lambs. Like I think
should.
that. But I don't know. It's almost more fun than Silence of the Lambs. It really like. I was hooting and hollering sitting here just alone.
As if you were a surfing guy.
What'd you say?
As if you were one of the surfing guys.
For sure. I was like, this is a great movie. Sex with girl. Mike, do you agree that it would have some shot?
Some shot. I think we would all be giggling at how far it got.
Yeah. Well, then, okay, let me phrase it another way then. I, myself, was very impressed viewing this movie. I thought it was a big movie for my childhood, but certainly it was not going to be the type of movie that we would enjoy now. And I really, really enjoyed it.
There's 3 action movies, I think, that we have planned to do bonus shows on from 91 that Greg was more or less, like, nonchalant about, right?
Yeah.
Or, like, just didn't give a shit. This one, Last Boy Scout, and Robin Hood. And so I get a little bit nervous before we watch them. Like, oh, Greg's going to yell at us and make fun of us because we don't read books or whatever. Now I'm way more nervous about the other two because this movie, like, watching it the whole time, I was not concerned. I was like, this is inarguably dope. This is just a fucking awesome movie.
I think there is an undercurrent of vileness to The Last Boy Scout. I don't think that like, this movie kind of, Point Break feels good to watch in a lot of ways. Last Boy Scout, I feel like, is going to feel bad to watch. And then Robin Hood is just, I liked that when I was a kid, so it'll be fun, I'm sure. But I doubt anything is going to have the impact this movie did.
My point, though, is that this rises so far above action movie we watched when we were kids.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny. That's the thing I want people to take away from it. It is such a funny movie.
It knows it's goofy. Like, you can't make fun of it. It already is making fun of it.
Did we talk about this part where Keanu Reeves is a little bit nervous about the parachute he was given, and so they just rotate parachutes until he's given the exact same parachute he's running off with.
And that was their deal, right? They were like 3-card Montying him.
Yeah, and they loved it. They were doing a bit. They're carnies.
They were torturing him. Well, that is it for Point Break. I'm so glad we had a chance to watch it. So glad we had a chance to talk about it. We have other bonus episodes coming up this season, so stick around, check those out. But hey, until then, do us a favor and keep watching them movies.